Tom's Diner is up at Columbia, and I used to eat there. I went to Barnard College, and I used to go there in the middle of the night to drink coffee and stay awake and try and work on my papers. And it was the most average hole-in-the-wall, greasy spoon you can imagine. And I thought, again, this is the kind of place that anybody can eat. You know, there are places like this all over America. This is not a fine dining establishment. You know, it's just a hole in the wall. And for that reason, I wanted to write a song about alienation that takes place there. And I had no idea that Seinfeld was going to use it later on and give it all that glitter. So I'm drawn to things and places and situations that are plain and kind of tell a universal story.
Could you describe, talking about Tom's Diner, what happened with the group DNA when you first heard Oh Suzanne, and what actually unfolded, because a whole new audience from around the world all of a sudden discovered, even though you had this massive following to start with, discovered from all different areas that wasn't a typical folk audience.
Right.
And could you just describe what actually unfolded, since it's a very, very interesting story, which is classical in industry?
Well, the first thing you should know about Tom's Diner is that it's a song that I recorded with no accompaniment. I did it with just my voice, and the reason for that was I had always imagined it in my mind's eye as being played on the piano. I didn't have a piano. I don't play the piano. I didn't really know anybody else who did play the piano, so I thought, well, I don't want to wait until someone arranges this. I'll just try and sing it, you know, straightforwardly to an audience. And I started to realize that it really got the audience's attention if I would just sing it straight, plain, no accompaniment. So I did that for years. So when we did the album, Solitude Standing, by then I could afford to hire a pianist, and I could have hired an arranger. And in fact, but I decided not to. I felt it worked live. So we just recorded it a cappella. And I didn't realize it, but that decision changed the course of everything that was to follow, because 3 years later, I had released an album called The Days of Open Hand. I was on tour promoting that album, and suddenly my manager came. We were backstage at Arsenio Hall show. And my manager came up to me saying, this thing has happened, and A&M's very upset, and we're going to sue these kids for copyright infringement because they've taken your song and they've put this dance track behind it, and A&M's furious, and they've violated the copyright. So I said, well, let me listen to it first before we go suing everybody. And I listened to it, and I remember smiling and thinking, I really like this. This is really cool. They don't change the song. The narrative is still the same. They didn't make a joke out of it. My voice is still my voice. The story is still my story. But somehow, you know, the whole production was very different. So I thought, let's just release it. Let's make a deal with these kids. I guess they were kids. I mean, we were all kids back then. So we bought it. We met with them. We bought it from them for some low figure and released it. And then it became a hit all over the world and sold 3 million copies. And then the strange thing is that people started to remix it and interpolate it themselves. And I got like reggae versions with the by somebody called Michigan and Smiley down in like Jamaica. And there was one version that incorporated the Gulf War. There was an I Dream of Jeannie version. And so within a year, I had collected 10 or 12 different versions, and I went back to A&M and I said, I'd like to put out all these different versions of Tom's Diner. And they said, we can't put out an album of 12 versions of the same song. That's such a weird idea. And I kind of pushed for it. And now it's called Tom's Album, and actually it's made a lot of money over the years, and it still sells because people play it at parties, and it's still interpolated by people like Ludacris and Drake and Destiny's Child, and all these different people have incorporated it, and they continue to do so even until this day. So.
And what's the background story with DNA? Was it just a couple of young kids in the Ministry of Sound in London, or something that just happened to really take a liking to your song? There must be something interesting.
There were two young men. One of them was the artist. His name is Nick Batt, and in fact, I just heard from him a couple of months ago, and he wrote me this lovely email saying, "Oh, I just heard our song on the radio, and I wanted to write to you." He's great. He was great. He is a kind of studio guy. He was a big fan. That's because I asked them. I said, "What on earth made you take this song?" And they said, "We're big fans of yours. We really like you, and if we hadn't done it, someone else would have done it." So I said, "Oh," because that would not have occurred to me. The other man who was part of the DNA group was a man named Neil Slateford, and he was more the business guy, who I don't think he's in the music industry anymore. I don't really know what field he's in, but I don't think it's music. But so it was just the two of them, and they called themselves DNA and made themselves into a unit. They got a record deal based on that one hit. Their career, went this way and that way.
And what number did it make it up on the Billboard charts? Do you remember?
Tom's Diner?
Yeah.
I don't remember what. It sold 3 million. I got some kind of award from ASCAP saying it was one of the most R&B songs played that year. Just really, really proud of. Adele, who's just sold millions of records. I'm one of the few people who have had music on all of the different charts. There's like 5 different charts that you can be part of, and I'm one of like 5 people, including Phil Collins and Adele, who have had music on the pop charts, the R&B charts, and